Welcome to the Gold Report. One set of facts, true today, true tomorrow. And we are so glad you're here. Please like, share, and subscribe to each so you don't miss any episodes. And of course, I'm joined today by my co-host, April Moss. And today we're having a very special guest joining us to discuss how you can get involved in your local community, help preserve American values. April?
And that's right. The one and only General Michael Flynn joins us today. He's a good friend and certainly a hero to this country. And he's going to be sharing the latest on the threat of artificial intelligence and fifth generation warfare. And it's a topic many are unaware of, the dangers that AI poses to humanity.
Right. So I'm so looking forward to talking with him. I just think he's unusual, right? To be so intellectually capable and so experienced in the military and intelligence space. So we're in for a treat.
We are. And he really could have just kind of gone off and sort of tried to enjoy a retirement, much like President Trump, but he's using every single day to continue to educate Americans on how they can make an impact at the local level. And I really feel like prior to 2020, most Americans were not paying attention to anything that had to do with local politics. The vast majority of people were kind of like, okay, I'll pay a little attention to, the news or the national news, but I really don't know what's even going on in my own community. And he has been the primary person, the voice who has been saying, listen, this is where you can really make the difference is at the local level. So I'm excited to hear more what he has to say about that.
Yeah, that is true. That's interesting. People always think it's about the president, but in fact, when you think about your daily life, where does most tyranny come from? It's local. It's the local school board. It's the local city council. They're putting rules or ordinances that are a problem for you. I mean, they might be putting in cameras everywhere. They might be having, these 15-minute smart cities. Smart, yeah, what a name. They might be pushing pornography in the schools. They might have lots of pornography in the public libraries, right? This is all local stuff, and he's very much awakening Americans to how important it is to fight locally.
Yeah, and one of the other things he's going to discuss when he joins the show is we're going to talk about the role that governors play, and I think we saw it played out the best with Florida and Governor Ron DeSantis and how he demonstrated what it looks like to uphold the Constitution, which is something that was very rare. We saw Governor Kristi Noem, do that during 2020. Governor Abbott sort of trailing behind DeSantis constantly, but there weren't a lot of brave and courageous governors during the COVID era.
I always want to say, and people don't remember, but when DeSantis ran for governor in 2018, it was a very, very narrow victory. And you kind of wonder if that was accurate or not, because the very first thing Governor DeSantis did was clean up the voting fraud that existed in Florida. I don't remember all the details of what he did, but that was a very big story. It was the number one thing. It was his main focus. And I just want to mention that because I don't know how you can have a democracy unless you've got fair elections and that people believe them to be fair. You and I don't know 100% what happened in 2020. We don't even know what happened in this recent 23 election, right? Mm-hmm. What we've seen, though, is pretty disturbing. You see pictures of poll workers and, the windows are blocked out. This is not consistent with what the law says should happen or the way they used the mail-in ballots when they were barred in their state constitution from doing it like that with the deadlines. So it's also important that the citizens believe that the elections are fair. I personally, where I stand right now, I'd say I'm agnostic, or I think that they're not fair. I'm not sure. And just not being sure is incredibly destabilizing to our democracy. So I appreciate that DeSantis cleaned up the voting right away. There was recently an election just, very recently, and, 23 is not a huge election year. But the governor, I was kind of following the governor race in Kentucky because I found it fascinating that a pretty red state has a blue governor. It doesn't happen very often. I think there's only 2 or 3. And you would really expect Kentucky to have a Republican governor, and yet the Democrat governor won. And my first thought is the election fair or not? Yeah. And that's very destabilizing to a democracy.
Yeah, well, we've witnessed too many times, especially in Arizona with the forensic audits and all of really Carrie Lake's race was just blaringly obvious, much like President Trump's race, where you saw she could draw huge crowds. So many people were excited for her. it seemed like she had the love of the entire state, and she was bold and brave, and she wasn't afraid to continue to say the hard facts of, I'm going to go against the cartels and all of these things. And then you find out after days and days of voting and machine error on voting day, where we know that the majority of Republicans or conservatives show up to the polls on election day. We have a long way to go in that department. And yeah, it's concerning. To watch today's full episode, visit thegoldreport.com.